Homeless girl carried a baby through the storm. What the single dad millionaire did will make you cry. The city was drowning in darkness. A fierce winter storm tore through the streets, dragging with it icy wind and sheets of rain that slammed into buildings. Tree branches snapped, leaves swirled in chaos, and thunder rolled like distant gunfire. It was the kind of night where people locked their doors, turned on heaters, and stayed safe inside. But not everyone had that luxury. A young woman stumbled down the sidewalk, nearly swallowed by the storm. Her thin, torn coat flapped violently in the wind, soaked through. Rain beat against her back. With each step, her knees buckled slightly, but she refused to fall. On her back, wrapped in a damp scarf, was a little girl, no more than 3 years old. The child clung to her mother's shoulders, head resting weakly against her neck, coughing in soft, raspy bursts. The mother's arms cradled her daughter's legs, shielding her from the worst of the cold with the last scraps of fabric. Her name was Leora. She looked fragile, too fragile to be carrying another life through this night. Her long blonde hair clung to her face in wet tangles. Her skin was pale, her cheeks hollow, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Her boots, split at the soles, slipped on the wet sidewalk, but her feet dug in, holding her steady. She had no choice. Every breath she took was for her daughter. Every shaking step forward was an act of love. Lightning tore across the sky, briefly illuminating her silhouette, thin, trembling, and upright. Then, she saw it, a bus stop shelter, dimly lit, with a roof, a small chance at rest. With all the strength she had left, Leora forced herself forward. The wind howled louder, slamming into her like a wave. She stumbled and fell hard onto the pavement, twisting mid-air to shield her daughter from the ground. Her body hit first, pain exploded through her side, but she stayed silent. She wrapped her arms tighter around the child. Rain poured down. Her breath came in short gasps. Her fingers scraped the pavement as she tried to rise. In her mind, a voice from the past echoed, "You're going to be an incredible nurse one day, Leora. You have both the heart and the mind for it." Her professor had said that once, back when she had a scholarship, a future, a dream. Now, she had nothing. No roof, no food, no family. All she had was the little girl on her back, and somehow, that was everything. "Just a little further, sweetheart," Leora whispered through trembling lips. "We're almost there." The child stirred. Her voice came out as a broken whisper, but her words were clear. "Mommy, you're my hero." Leora froze. The words struck deep. She closed her eyes. Tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. A soft sob escaped her lips. Not of surrender, but of someone who still had a reason to fight. And then, the sound of tires splashing through water. A sleek, black SUV pulled to the curb, headlights slicing through the rain. The driver's door opened, and a tall man stepped out. He held a large umbrella and walked quickly toward them. His coat blew in the wind, but he didn't hesitate. There was no fear in his face, only concern. "Are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside them. His voice was low, steady. "Please, come inside. It's not safe out here." He held the umbrella over them now, shielding all three from the down. Leora looked up at him through soaked lashes. Her arms instinctively tightened around her daughter. Her body trembled, not just from cold, but from fear. She didn't speak. She just stared, unsure if this was rescue or another risk. But something in the man's eyes, warm, calm, unthreatening, held her still. He didn't rush her. He didn't pressure her. He simply waited. And that was how it ended. A broken woman, a brave little girl, a man standing in the storm, offering shelter. The wind screamed. But for a brief moment, the world held its breath. The heat inside the SUV felt like another world. As soon as Everett gently closed the door behind Leora and her daughter, he turned on the heater and handed her a thick blanket from the back seat. His movements were calm, unhurried. "Here," he said, offering water and a clean towel. "Wrap her up first." Leora's hands trembled. She peeled the wet scarf off Arya, gently patting the child's forehead and wrapping her in the blanket. Her lips were pale. Her eyes flicked around the car, alert. Everett didn't push. He sat back in the driver's seat, glancing at them in the mirror. His coat collar was damp. He looked like a man who had seen storms and survived them. "I'm Everett," he said finally, voice soft. "I won't ask your name unless you want me to know it." Leora said nothing. Her focus was on Arya, whose breathing had grown shallow. She touched the girl's cheek, alarmed by the heat radiating from her skin. "She's burning up," she whispered, panic rising. Everett turned. One look at Arya's flushed face and he was already moving. "She needs a doctor," he said. "Now." He started the car and pulled into the street. Rain lashed the windows, but Everett drove with calm urgency. Leora held Arya tightly in the back seat. "Hold on, baby," she whispered. "Just hold on." Everett spoke gently. "There's a clinic 10 minutes from here. They're open all night. She doesn't have insurance," Leora said softly. "I didn't ask," Everett replied. They reached the clinic just as lightning flashed. Everett parked near the door and carried Arya inside. Leora followed, soaked and barefoot, her ruined shoes left in the car. The nurse moved quickly. Within minutes, Arya was hooked to fluids and an oxygen mask. The doctor diagnosed her with mild pneumonia, serious, but treatable. "She's going to be okay," the doctor said. "It's good you brought her in." Leora sat beside Arya, brushing damp hair from her forehead. Relief flooded her, but so did shame. When the nurse handed her billing forms, her hands froze. She didn't need to look, she already knew. Everett stepped forward. "I've got it," he said, calm but firm. Leora turned toward him. "No, I can't let you. Don't worry about the bill," he said gently. "Just focus on your daughter." She stared at him. Her pride told her to refuse, but seeing Arya sleeping peacefully softened something inside her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. Everett shrugged. "Because I can, and because someone should." Hours passed. Arya rested more easily. The storm outside had calmed. Leora sat silently by her daughter's side, not sleeping. Everett remained in the room, seated quietly in the corner. He didn't speak unless she did, but his presence was steady. When Arya's breathing finally returned to normal, Everett stood and approached. "You don't have anywhere to go, do you?" he asked, not judging, just stating. Leora shook her head. "You and your daughter can stay with me," he said, "just until she's better. I have space. It's warm and safe." Leora hesitated. Her instinct screamed to refuse. But Arya stirred against her, curling into her chest, peaceful at last. She whispered, still unsure. "No pressure," Everett added. "Just an offer. No strings." Leora looked at him, really looked. The stranger who had appeared in the storm. Not forceful, not demanding, just there, present, kind. She looked down at Arya and nodded once. Everett didn't say anything else. He returned to his chair and sat. That night, as the storm lifted, a door opened. And in the quiet space between fear and relief, something fragile began to grow. Trust. The heavy iron gate swung open with a quiet hum, revealing a wide, winding driveway flanked by trees, their bare branches glistening with melting rain. At the end stood a modern, two-story house, its windows glowing softly in the evening light. Not grandiose, but elegant, thoughtfully built, warm, despite the clean lines and stone exterior. Leora sat stiffly in the passenger seat as the SUV pulled to a stop in front of the house. Arya slept in her arms, her cheeks finally returning to a healthier shade. Leora looked up at the house, intimidating in its beauty, and Everett stepped out first, circling around to open her door. He didn't rush her, didn't speak, just extended a hand to help. She hesitated before taking it. Inside, the warmth enveloped her instantly. The entryway was softly lit, the scent of something simmering in the kitchen drifting through the air. Garlic, tomatoes, maybe basil. The floor beneath her feet was polished wood, and a woven rug ran down the hallway toward a spacious living area. She stood frozen in the doorway, suddenly hyper-aware of the mud on her boots, the damp strands of blonde hair stuck to her face, and the faint odor of rain and cold that clung to her coat. "You can take off your shoes if you'd like," Everett said gently, not commanding. "There's a guest bathroom right there if you want to change. I'll find something dry for your daughter." Leora nodded, voice caught in her throat. She looked down at her tattered shoes, then slowly slid them off and stepped onto the rug, feeling almost like an intruder in a museum. Just then, soft footsteps pattered down the stairs. A little boy, about 6 years old, with dark, curly hair and curious brown eyes, peeked around the banister. He held a toy truck in one hand, his eyes lighting up when he saw the unfamiliar faces. "That's Theo," Everett said, smiling gently. "My son." Theo walked over, looking first at Leora, then at the small girl in her arms. "Is she okay?" he asked. Leora blinked, surprised by his directness. "She's just tired," she said softly. Without hesitation, Theo held out his toy truck. "It's yours now. She looks like she needs a friend." Leora didn't know what to say. She knelt so Arya, now stirring, could see. The little girl opened her eyes, looked at the boy, and reached out for the truck with a tiny smile. A moment, pure and uncomplicated, passed between them. No pity, no fear, just kindness. Dinner was quiet. Everett had made a simple plate of spaghetti and meatballs, set out with salad and warm bread. Leora sat at the table nervously, unsure of whether she should eat. She tried to refuse, offering a soft, "I'm not really hungry." Arya, however, wasn't shy. The moment her plate was placed in front of her, she dove in with tiny, eager bites, sauce smearing across her cheeks. Everett gave Leora a reassuring look. "You're safe here. Just eat." Her lip trembled slightly. She picked up a fork and began to feed Arya, hands shaking. After a few bites, she ate too, slowly, as if relearning the act of receiving comfort. It had been too long since she sat at a table, ate warm food, and wasn't watching over her shoulder. When dinner was finished, Leora automatically began collecting the plates. "Let me help," she said. Everett shook his head. "You don't have to do that. Just rest." She looked away, not wanting to seem ungrateful, but he added, "You've done more than enough already." It was the first time in months someone had made her feel seen. Later that night, Leora sat on the edge of a soft bed in the guest room. The sheets were clean, the lamp glowed gently on the nightstand, and Arya lay curled under the covers, clutching Theo's toy truck like a lifeline. Leora stared out the window at the now quiet night. The storm had passed. The wind was gone. For the first time in a long time, there was only silence. She whispered into the dark, mostly to herself, "Maybe just one night, we can sleep like normal people." Then she lay beside her daughter, closed her eyes, and let herself rest. The morning light filtered softly through the linen curtains. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clean hush, the kind that only comes after chaos. In the stillness, Leora moved quietly through the unfamiliar kitchen. She had woken early, before anyone else, and couldn't sleep. Gratitude buzzed under her skin. She needed to move, to do something, to show she wasn't just a burden passing through. The kitchen was already spotless, but she wiped the counters anyway, washed the few dishes, lined them to dry. She swept the hardwood floors, pausing to glance out the window at Everett's backyard. Then she made a simple breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, warm milk for the kids. Every motion was quiet, thoughtful. She moved the way she used to in nursing school, when life still made sense. She had loved caring for people, before it was all taken from her. Everett stood in the doorway, unnoticed at first. He watched as she adjusted the toaster, tucked a loose strand of blonde hair behind her ear, checked the eggs. She looked calm, steady. "You don't have to do all this," he finally said. Leora turned, surprised. Her cheeks flushed. "I just wanted to help. I didn't want you to think I was taking advantage. You've done more than enough, Everett said gently. It's okay to rest. She offered a small smile, but didn't stop moving. Later that day, Theo and Arya played on the living room rug, building towers out of blocks, giggling as they knocked them down. Everett watched from the armchair, a faint smile touching his lips, but when Arya's golden hair fell across her shoulders, something in him stirred. Flashback. Rain, headlights, his wife's voice on the phone, promising she'd be home soon. Then metal, sirens, silence. She'd been pregnant. He lost them both that night. He had barely survived the grief. The only reason he kept going was Theo, so small, asking where Mommy had gone. The pain never fully left, but watching Arya now, alive, laughing, it opened something inside him that had been locked away for too long. That night, after the children were asleep, Everett found Leora at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of. He poured himself a cup and sat across from her. They didn't speak at first. The silence was warm. Then Leora said quietly, I was in nursing school, top of my class, full scholarship. I was going to help people. Everett listened. I fell in love with the wrong person, she continued. He left when I told him I was pregnant. After that, everything fell apart. Her voice trembled. I tried to stay afloat. But the rent, the food, I couldn't keep up. She looked down at her mug. Now I'm here, living in a stranger's house, hoping I haven't made a mistake. You haven't, Everett said. She met his eyes. You're stronger than you think, he told her. Most people wouldn't survive what you've been through. His words were gentle, not pitying, just honest. But the peace didn't last long. Around 2 a.m., Leora woke to Arya's soft whimpers. She sat up, heart pounding, and felt her daughter's forehead, burning hot. Arya, she whispered, panic rising. The girl stirred weakly, her breathing shallow. No, no, no. She rushed into the hallway. Everett. He was already there, coming out of his room, dressed, alert. She's burning up, Leora cried. I don't know what to do. I can't lose her. Everett scooped Arya into his arms. Get your coat. We're going now. Rain had returned, tapping lightly on the windshield as Everett drove. Please don't take her from me. Please. At the hospital, staff moved quickly. The doctor said it was a high fever from a lingering infection, not dangerous if treated. She's going to be okay, the doctor said. Leora collapsed into a chair beside the hospital bed, tears silently spilling as she watched her daughter resting, an IV in her small arm. Everett stayed too, seated nearby. He didn't speak, he didn't leave. Eventually, Leora's head drifted onto his shoulder. She didn't mean to fall asleep, but her body gave in. He didn't move. He let her rest. They said nothing, and in that quiet space, between dim lights and beeping monitors, something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not rescue, just healing. It was a quiet morning, the kind that usually passed unnoticed. Theo had forgotten his lunch, so Everett offered to drive him to school instead of letting the carpool handle it. It felt like nothing more than a small, comforting moment in a newly forming rhythm. But sometimes, the smallest shift opens the door for everything to fall apart. While they were out, Everett's longtime friend, Miles, dropped by. Miles was sharp, tailored suit, quick tongue, always calculating. A venture capitalist who had known Everett since college, he was one of the few from Everett's old world he still kept in touch with. He stepped into the house, noticed toys on the floor, the faint scent of eggs in the air, and then saw her, Leora. She was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters, blonde hair tied loosely, sleeves rolled. She offered a polite, Miles raised an eyebrow, leaning against the counter, voice low. So this is her? The girl from the storm? Leora paused, mid-wipe. She's still here? His tone wasn't cruel, just laced with disbelief. He glanced at the living room, then back at her. A homeless girl shows up with a kid in a thunderstorm and ends up living here? Everett's generous, but this feels convenient. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Leora heard every word. The rag slipped from her fingers, landing in the sink. Her stomach twisted. Miles didn't notice she'd heard, but she had, and it stung. She climbed the stairs in silence, each step heavier than the last. In the small bathroom, she stared at her reflection. Pale skin, tired eyes, worn-out clothes. Her hair frizzed around a face she barely recognized. Maybe he's right, she thought. Maybe they'll always see me as a burden. Maybe I don't belong here. Her breath hitched. She gripped the sink. Maybe, she whispered. We don't belong anywhere. That evening, over dinner, Everett mentioned Miles casually. He stopped by earlier, he said, buttering bread. Leora's fork paused mid-air. I didn't realize you two talked about me, she said quietly. Everett frowned. We didn't. Why would you think that? She gave a small, tired smile. It's okay. I get it. I'm just trying not to be a problem. Everett opened his mouth to respond, but Theo ran in holding a drawing. Dad, look what I made. The moment passed. That night, Leora couldn't sleep. She sat on the bed's edge, watching Arya breathe peacefully, safe, warm, everything Leora feared she might not be able to provide for long. She brushed a golden curl from her daughter's cheek. Then, slowly, she began to pack. She didn't have much, just a few things Everett had lent her. She folded them carefully. When the house was still, she tiptoed into the kitchen and pulled out a piece of paper. She wrote, "Thank you for giving my daughter warmth when we needed it most. We will never forget your kindness, but we shouldn't stay. I'm sorry. Leora." She left the note beside Everett's morning mug. Then she wrapped Arya in the familiar scarf, lifted her onto her back, and slipped out the front door. The air was cold, the sky barely light. Wind cut through her thin jacket, but she walked steadily into the gray dawn. She didn't look back. When Everett came downstairs the next morning, something felt wrong. Too quiet. No clinking dishes, no soft humming, no tiny footsteps. Then he saw the letter. His chest tightened. He read it once, then again. "Leora," he whispered. Theo appeared at the stairs, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, where's Arya?" Everett crouched, heart pounding. "I'm going to bring them home," he said softly. He grabbed his keys and rushed out the door, not realizing he hadn't even grabbed his coat. Rain had returned, just a drizzle, tapping against the windshield as he drove. He checked the shelter, the park, the church steps, every corner of the city that made sense, but they weren't there. Finally, he pulled into a quiet park's lot. The swings moved gently in the wind. The playground was empty. He stayed in the car, hands clenched on the wheel, staring out at the stillness. "Please be safe, both of you," he whispered. The rain tapped gently on the glass, and for the first time in years, Everett felt truly helpless. The city was waking up under a gray, misty sky. Streetlights flickered off as morning crept in, soft and slow. The storm had faded into a fine drizzle, but the chill still hung in the air. Everett's eyes scanned the sidewalks, his car crawling through neighborhoods he hadn't visited in years. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He had checked the usual places: homeless shelters, bus stations, churches, nothing. A pit grew in his stomach. Then, as he turned onto a quiet block lined with shuttered storefronts, he saw them. Under the overhang of a closed bakery, huddled against the brick wall, sat Leora. Her blonde hair hung in damp strands, head tilted back in exhausted sleep. Arya was curled in her lap, wrapped in Leora's coat, thumb in her mouth, breathing steady. Everett pulled over and stepped out without thinking. The drizzle touched his hair, but he didn't notice. He walked slowly, almost afraid they might vanish if he moved too fast. He knelt beside them, removing his coat and draping it gently over their shoulders. "You don't have to run anymore," he said, voice thick with emotion. Leora stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, confusion crossed her face, until she saw him. She sat up fast, startled. "Everett, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to cause problems. I didn't want to be a burden." He crouched lower, so he was at eye level. "You weren't," he said. "Not for a second." She looked away, ashamed. Everett's voice softened further. "You didn't take advantage of me, Leora. You reminded me what kindness looks like. And my son, he laughs again because of your little girl." Tears welled in her eyes, but she said nothing. Arya began to stir. The little girl blinked up at Everett, then rubbed her eyes with a sleepy fist. She looked from him to her mother, then leaned in and whispered, "Mommy, Mr. Everett found us. Maybe he's the daddy from the stories you read to me." The words hit like a quiet thunderclap, soft, innocent, and devastatingly powerful. Leora's hand flew to her mouth, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Everett's throat tightened, but he didn't speak. He simply placed a steady hand on Arya's back, holding the moment with quiet reverence. After a long pause, Everett spoke gently. "Come back with me. Stay as long as you want. And Leora," he waited until her eyes met his, "let me help you go back to school. You were born to be a nurse. Let me give you that chance." She opened her mouth to protest, but he raised a hand. "Not because I pity you," he added, "but because I believe in you." Leora stared at him, at the man who had appeared in the darkest night of her life, who had never once asked for anything in return. His face held no judgment, no expectation, just trust. She looked down at Arya, still nestled in her arms, and back up at Everett. Then she reached out, took his hand, and squeezed it. "Maybe," she whispered. "It's time to start again." Everett smiled, relief softening the lines of his face. He gently lifted Arya into his arms, holding her with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Leora stood beside him, still trembling, but a little steadier now. Together, they walked to the car. As Everett helped Leora into the front seat, the sun began to break through the clouds, casting a golden light across the wet pavement. For the first time in days, the sky was clear. Inside the car, Arya curled up in Everett's coat, already drifting back to sleep. Leora looked out the window as they drove, watching the raindrops slide away, replaced by streaks of sunlight. The city no longer looked so gray. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Maybe. Storms really do lead us home." The rhythm of life began to shift, gently, like sunlight on a windowsill. Leora started night classes at the local college, enrolling in a part-time nursing program. It had been years since she sat in a classroom, but her mind soaked up knowledge like dry earth in rain. She was focused, determined, and grateful. During the day, she kept busy, cooking, folding laundry, helping Everett, playing with Theo, reading to Arya before class. No one asked her, she just did it, quietly, wholeheartedly. Arya and Theo were inseparable. They built forts, invented a secret language, and held hands during cartoons. They called each other best friend, and sometimes brother and sister, like it had always been that way. Everett remained steady, kind, present, never overstepping. He gave Leora space to grow, but it was the little things that touched her most. Each night before class, she'd find a thermos of coffee and a wrapped sandwich waiting on the counter. She never saw him prepare them, but they were always there. One evening she asked, "Do you make these?" Everett looked up and smiled faintly. Maybe the coffee fairy stopped by. She laughed. "She has really good timing." He just nodded, returning to his laptop. But Leora watched him a little longer, her heart warm. Arya's 4th birthday came quietly. No party, no decorations, just dinner, cake, and something more. A week before, Everett had asked Theo, "If you were Arya, what would make her birthday special?" Theo had answered without pause, "Something she can keep forever, like magic." So each night after bedtime, Everett went to the garage, not to work, but to make something by hand. On Arya's birthday morning, after breakfast, he knelt beside her and handed over a small box wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a bracelet, made of soft yarn and wooden beads. At its center was a silver charm engraved with, "To the bravest little girl I know." Arya stared at it quietly. Her fingers traced the charm, the string, then the charm again. Then she looked at Everett. Her lower lip trembled, her eyes glassy, though she didn't seem to understand why, and without a word, she threw her arms around his neck and whispered, "Daddy." Silence followed, heavy, sacred. Leora, standing in the doorway, froze, her breath caught. It was the first time Arya had ever called anyone that. She hadn't prepared for it. But as she saw her daughter clinging to Everett's neck and his hand gently supporting her back, she didn't feel jealousy. She felt peace. She felt safety. And the tears that came weren't from pain, but gratitude. Later, after candles were blown out and dishes done, Leora tucked Arya in and kissed her forehead. The bracelet still circled her wrist, her fingers curled around it. Leora sat beside her, watching her drift into sleep. Then she leaned down and whispered into the dark, "If there's anyone I'd trust to be your hero, it's him." And in that quiet, wrapped in soft breathing and stillness, Leora felt something she hadn't in years. Home. 1 year later, the sun cast a golden hue across the morning sky as laughter echoed through the quiet park. A checkered blanket lay on the soft grass, anchored by a wicker picnic basket and 2 half-filled coffee mugs. Leora sat on a wooden bench just a few feet away, watching Arya chase Theo around the open field. Her blonde hair danced in the breeze, a picture of joy and freedom. Theo's giggles blended with hers, their voices bright and unburdened. Everett handed Leora a fresh cup of coffee, his eyes following the children with a quiet smile. "You look happy," he said. "I am," she replied, her voice soft but certain. Leora had graduated with honors. She was now a full-time nurse at a local hospital. Her badge read, Leora Bennett, RN. Every shift reminded her of how far she had come and how much further she still wanted to go. They still lived in Everett's house, but no one called it his anymore. It was theirs now. They had never labeled what they were. No rings, no ceremonies, no declarations, but it felt real, steady, true. "I never thought I'd be here," Leora said, glancing at Everett. "Not after that night in the storm." He looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "Maybe storms aren't meant to break us. Maybe they bring us to where we belong." She smiled, eyes misting. A gust of wind sent a few leaves tumbling by, and just then, Arya came running up, holding Theo's hand tightly. Her cheeks were flushed from play, her bracelet bouncing on her wrist, still the same one Everett had made, though slightly faded now. She looked up at her mom with wide, curious eyes and asked, "Mommy, are we a real family now?" Leora's breath caught. She opened her mouth but found no words. Before she could respond, Everett reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. His touch was steady, his expression warm. No answer was needed. Leora turned to her daughter, kneeling to meet her gaze. Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't. "What do you think, sweetheart?" she whispered. Arya grinned. "I think yes." Theo chimed in with a confident nod. "We are, like a team." Everett chuckled, tousling the boy's hair. As the sun climbed higher, the 4 of them began to pack up. Everett carried the basket, Leora gathered the cups, and Theo raced ahead, calling out made-up adventure rules. Arya reached for Leora's hand, and together they followed behind. The sky was clear, no trace of the storm that had once nearly swallowed them whole, and as they walked across the grass, the breeze tugging gently at their clothes, Leora's voice came in through a soft voiceover. "Some storms take everything from you, but some lead you home." The screen slowly faded to black, leaving only the sound of children laughing in the distance, bright, unbroken, and full of promise. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and hit the hype button to support soul-stirring stories. Every view, every like, and every share helps us bring more real, emotional, and life-changing stories to you. Because sometimes, All it takes is one story to remind us of love, hope, and the family we choose. Thank you for watching, and remember, even the darkest storms can lead you home. Stay kind, stay inspired. See you in the next story.